I'm having the experience of the individual, but I'm also the reality. And then I started to look at the other individuals in the gym, and I was like, I just woke up in this one, but I'm also dreaming myself into all of the other individuals, right? But I'm still asleep in them. They're still dreaming. And that was like my spiritual awakening.
Welcome, welcome, beloved soul family. I am Julie, your host, and I always appreciate you being here. I know that there are many, many other places you can be, other things to listen to. I'm actually recording this after my interview with Gareth Duignam. I highly encourage you to stay till the very end. It's different. We're doing a little bit of a different kind of activation and experience. If you can, you're going to want to leave about 10 minutes towards the very end of it. And if you're able to be in a space where you can actually sit down, lay down, close your eyes, that would be ideal. I have not done it this way before, but you will definitely feel Gareth's presence in the meditation he leads, and would really love to hear what you felt, what you noticed. Did anything come up for you? Did you sense anything, feel anything? So if you get, or hopefully you do get to the end, you listen, and you're part of the meditation, let me know. You can send an email, absolutely, on YouTube. We have a really thriving community. Comments, I try to respond to everything. You can share there. I think Gareth is going to also be on there as well. Feel free to leave a message wherever you would like, but please let me know. I'd love to know what you feel and sense. This is a very, very beautiful conversation. All about the reality of who we are. And I think you're going to find this to be enlightening and very helpful. At least that's my prayer. That's always my hope, that this conversation, any conversation I'm having, is going to add illumination and light and love and bless you. So, as always, from my heart to yours, I hope that this opens your heart and opens your mind and gives you a little taste of the divinity, the divine love and grace that you are. You-est You family, I am so excited. Today we're here with Gareth Duignam, who is a spiritual teacher, energy healer, and such a cool human being. We are going to talk we're going to be in the deep end of the spiritual pool, as I like to say. Gareth, you know what? Before I even go any further, I would just thank you first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us all the way from Ireland. I'm so grateful.
Julie, thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely introduction as well. I'm very happy to be here. Very excited. Yeah. I love these conversations. They're they can be so deep and meaningful, and people can get so much from them. So thank you.
So I would love, for those who, some may know you already, may not know you, let's start, did you always feel a propensity towards spirituality? Maybe you can share a little bit about you and how you even found yourself in the work that you do. And I'll let you pull that from whatever thread you would like, but so we can
Okay.
get to know you.
Okay, so I do have memories. I've been very young as a child, living with my grandmother, very close to Dublin city centre, and having an out-of-body experience. And somehow finding myself outside of my bedroom, floating on the attic, on the landing, and being able to control my body and go down flights of stairs. We lived in a kind of an old Georgian house, and I remember waking up the next morning thinking something wasn't right. Humans can't do this kind of thing, and maybe something had happened to me. Maybe I had been bitten by a vampire, because vampires could fly. I didn't, humans couldn't. So there was some other little things. I started to be aware of a very young age of something that was in behind my mind that was able to listen to my thoughts. It was listening, but I didn't really know what it was. And from early on, going to school, we moved quite young when I was maybe 7 to a different neighborhood, going to a new school. I had a problem. I didn't fit in and I couldn't make friends, and I always felt like an outsider. And most of my young childhood and my teenage years, I kind of found myself, not that I was bad, but I got into a lot of trouble. got into trouble in school. My parents were always being called for. I was disruptive. And just something didn't feel right to me. I just felt my family were strange. The people around me were strange. Something was wrong. I just felt very on the outside. Everybody else was friends. Everybody else was getting on great. And I was just kind of going, this doesn't feel right to me. So fast forward a couple of years, I found myself working in construction. I had a business, wasn't particularly happy. I was going on holidays, and I had a girlfriend at the time, and I was bored on the plane, and she said, here's a book, read this, stop annoying me. And it was Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. I'm sure a lot of people know this. It's a really famous book. And I took the book. Immediately I started working on myself. There was all these exercises that the book suggested, and I started doing them. And I started to notice that my reality started to change, and my relationship with the world started to change. I started to bring in more prosperity. I started to attract better people into my life. And I discovered that I could manifest, right? I started to be able to manifest things. I manifested a business for myself. I manifested a house. I was really good at it. And I knew that there was something to it. I knew that there was a law in the universe. And if I sent out a message, that the universe would reply. And this was really like obvious to me, how I think attracts, that into my life. So that went on for a couple of years. And I eventually kind of went, well, okay, I've attracted all of this stuff into my life. What's next? Where do I go? And I always had a kind of a fear of dying. And it was like in my head, I was like, well, okay, if I do all of this and I build a life, I don't really like the idea of it just being taken away at any moment, And I really wanted to know what happened when we die. And I started a seeking mode. I was like, okay, I want to find answers. And I came across a book by, I think it was Dr. Brian Weiss, Many Lives, Many Masters. He was a hypnotherapist, and he was regressing people into past lives. And I found this fascinating. And I said, okay, I'm going to go and do a past life regression with a hypnotherapist. So I went and I found one that did it, and sat there for a couple of hours one evening and was regressed into past lives. Had a very critical mind. I was skeptical, open-minded, but skeptical. And I was like, am I just making this up? How much of this is just suggestion from the hypnotherapist? It was kind of like a moving daydream, but I was still very much, I don't know. It doesn't feel real to me. So a couple of weeks later, YouTube had just kind of come out at the time. It was around 2006, 2007. I came across a gentleman called Bob Monroe, and Bob Monroe was the author of these three books, Journeys Out of the Body, Far Journeys, and Ultimate Journeys. And they were all about out-of-body experiences. And I was just like, oh, wow, right? Consciously, this guy is able to leave his body and he's able to journey into the spirit world. I want to do that. If I can do that, I have all the answers. I know I don't die. And I started practicing, bought all the books I could find, went onto Amazon, bought everything on out-of-body experiences, and started practicing every day, twice a day, and nothing was happening. Totally frustrated. 3 months went by of me practicing every day. I bought all of these CDs. I must have spent thousands on it. I eventually thought, okay, this is not happening. And I'm not just taking the word of this guy. I wanted to do it for myself, but it's not happening. And in his books, he spoke about these explorers that worked for him in this lab. And one of them was called TC Physicist, who I discovered is a gentleman called Tom Campbell. I don't know if anyone knows who Tom Campbell is. He's a nuclear physicist that wrote the book My Big Toe. And I came across Tom's work, and Tom had all these lectures. He studied with Bob and then spent the next 30 years mapping out the larger consciousness system. So he would get out of body and he would map it all out, and he wrote this trilogy. So I found Tom on Facebook. He had about 14 friends at the time, and I sent him a message and I said, Tom, I've been watching all your videos. I've been practicing to go out of body. Is there anything you can do to help me? And he wrote back the next day. And nothing concrete, just thank you, blah, 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 go onto my website, do this, do that. 2 nights later, or the next night, I woke up in bed with vibrations running up and down my body, jet engine sounds. It felt like the whole room was vibrating, the bed was shaking, and I knew that this was the prelude to having an out of body experience from reading the books. I was like, oh my God, this is it. All of a sudden, two hands reached in, grabbed me under the arms, and pulled me out of my body and threw me, catapulted me through the roof, and I started flying across the fields. It was in the night sky. Eventually, I came down in the field, and I stood in the field, and I looked at my hands, and I said, I did it. I'm out of my body. And as soon as that happened, there was like a big elastic band pulled me back into my body. I jumped up and I went, oh, wow, I did it. I know for a fact I have just been out of my body consciously, and we live on beyond the body. So that was huge. That was huge for me. So it didn't stop there. 2 or 3 nights later, it happened again, and it happened again, and it kept happening, and I couldn't turn it off. And I had all sorts of crazy experiences, adventures, getting out of body, meeting beings, deceased people just walking around. I was able to have conversations with them, uh, just thinking I could move to different countries. I could find myself in different realities. And it's just went on for about a year and a half before it subsided. Yeah, I eventually lost interest in it. Um, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Gareth. So at any point were you scared when you were pulled out, the two hands pulling you out? I mean, I want to hear, and I know there's so much more, but I want to pause here because this is pretty amazing, right? Like this, you might see this in a movie, you might read about it, but you started to experience it. Was there any fear when it started?
Not so much fear. I mean, a little bit of apprehension just as the vibrations would come, because it would kind of feel like you were in between two worlds. You were in the physical and the non-physical. And it's kind of like not knowing what's under your bed, or if you're swimming in the ocean, it's great up on the surface, but you don't really know what's underneath, right? So I kind of had that feeling, because it's almost like something lights up and all the non-physical beings are immediately drawn to whatever energetic process is happening. And some of them call your name, some of them you might hear glass breaking, wind, all these kind of things. And I think that they are actually fear tests. It's testing you. Is there loads of fear? Because I what I feel is that if you get out into these realities with loads of fear in yourself, you're just going to cause problems for yourself, right? You're going to attract what you have in your system. So I didn't have fear. I really enjoyed it, and I had a lot of excitement about doing it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you are finding yourself in different worlds and spaces. Can you share a little bit the beings that you met, the way they looked, what it felt like? Those that were deceased, were these well known? Were they family? Inquiring minds want to know, including my
Okay.
own. Like, what was this like?
Okay, so I'm going to disappoint you. So it seems like you would have all of these great ideas of what to do when you get into this out of body state. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of the times it was just the excitement of being separate from your body and going, okay, take me to the front of the house, and what's it like from there? And it was really just sort of uh, almost like I was learning to walk and talk in this reality, right? Just I was getting my training wheel. So in the beginning, there wasn't a lot of excitement. It was just literally me being out of my body, figuring out how I move, how I can put my hand through a wall, all this kind of phenomena. Um, I mean, there was one time when what I would do is when the vibrations would start coming up and down my body, I would imagine that I was rolling like a log rolling in water, and I would pop, I would roll out of my body off the bed, and sometimes I would fall through the floor. My astral body would fall through the floor. And one evening I fell through the floor, and there was two teenage girls sat in my sitting room in pajamas with cushions on their laps talking to one another. And I was kind of stood there, and all of a sudden the two of them turned around and looked at me, and they got scared of me and screamed and vanished through the wall. Um, so they're everywhere. I would get out and I would be, you know, flying along roads, and I would just see beings. Just I don't know if they knew that they were dead or they were, but they're just going about their business, and you can see them, and they're everywhere.
Yeah. Did the world, it's interesting. I have had a lot of dreams which we'll talk about what's real and what's not anyhow.
Yeah.
Um, I've had a lot of dreams of flying and of this, what you're talking about, and it does not look the same as Earth, but it's definitely it looked it's hard to even explain it. I'm wondering, as you were flying about, did it feel like Earth? Did you feel like you were in a different dimension or world? Were the beings, did they look human? Did some not? Could you identify, oh, that's a Palladian or that's a blue, whatever? Or was it more it felt human and just different?
So Bob Monroe used to call it locale two, and it was just you would get out and it would be a replica of this world, right? And there are humans who may not know that they're dead, who are actually stuck in a belief trap. They've died and they're just stuck here, and they're stuck in a loop and they can't move on. And you can do soul retrievals. You can go up to them and explain to them that they're actually dead and they should really move on. Um, and I did find myself in what you would call astral realms, you know, and
Mm,
I've seen like, I mean, suspended cities in the skies and dragons and all that kind of stuff. But you know, it's like okay, you come back and it kind of feels a bit like a fairy tale.
mm,
Yeah, and just to get back to what you just said there, these dreams of flying, most likely you were having out of body experiences.
mm.
Um, yeah.
I think that I'm so excited to talk more because I know you have a whole book, Waking Up from the Dream, which I'd love to, we'll get into and
Yeah.
what is the dream. Okay, you said after a year and a half or so, you kind of were over it a little. You were like, okay, been there, done that. What ensued from there?
Okay, so I was a really tough nut to crack. I wasn't religious. I didn't believe in anything, right? So it was almost like consciousness really had to give me in your face experiences for me to you know believe this is real. And when you do it, it's not even a belief. It's like I know without a doubt. So they went on for about a year and a half. I also had lucid dreams. So lucid dream is you actually become lucid. You're in the dream and you wake up in the dream and you realize that your body's asleep and that you've just woke up and you're in a dream reality. And it seems that I was being prepared for something, right? So the phenomena came up. I had some fun with it. I still had loads of ego. You know, there was still a Gareth. There was still a person who thought all of these things were great to talk about. Um, After they subsided, I kind of went, okay, I have a business. I had children. I kept meditating because I just like how it felt. And the out of body phenomena kind of died down. But I was then finding myself in classrooms at nighttime. So I would go to bed and I would wake up in these strange classrooms, like where I was being taught lessons. There was like different situations that I had to make choices about. There was an intelligence that seemed to be teaching me, and it wasn't a person, it wasn't beings, it was just something. It was an intelligence. It would communicate to me, but not with words. It was just sort of like telepathy would come in. I would get an understanding. And one of the things I spoke about was that I had fear of dying in my system. And it was still there, even though I was having the out of body experiences. It communicated to me one night. It was like, okay, there's still energy of fear about dying. We want to take you through the death process.
Mm,
So I was able to experience moving from my living state, and they would shift me into what felt like shifting from living into the dying process, right? And the consciousness stayed. It was like moving from waking to dreaming or dreaming to waking. That's kind of how it felt. And we did that 5 or 6 times. They would bring me there and they'd say, okay, this is what it's like when you pass on. What do you think? And I go, totally fine. And then they go, okay, we'll bring you back. And we did this a number of times. And then they were like, okay, is there any more? And I was like, no, it's totally fine. It just felt so easy, so natural. And then that kind of subsided. Um, I then got an illness. I got a mysterious illness that came in and it really knocked me out. I couldn't work for about a year or two. Um, I really struggled. I had a business. A couple of retail stores, an e-commerce website, a warehouse, and I found it really, really difficult. But I also kind of had this understanding of that something was happening. Something, I was being primed. I was burning off karma in some way, and eventually got over it, right? The illness eventually went away, and I moved and found myself, um, I got involved with Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you know Eckhart. So I
Oh,
came across
absolutely.
Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. And somehow after, actually it was his audiobook and I was listening to his audiobook and somehow I was like, oh my God, how did I miss this power of being in the present moment? Even though I was having all this phenomena going on and out of body experiences and I was great at meditating, but I was missing this part of just being in the moment, quietening down my mind, and really started to fall in love with this practice of centering myself, not thinking, being the witness of my life. And this was going on for maybe about a year. And one morning I got up to go to the gym, went in and kind of felt like I was being watched. I had this really eerie feeling that I was in the Truman Show and I was listening to music and I was like, it was almost like the songs were trying to get my attention. I was like, that's really strange. And then I looked and the sun was coming through the window and the music. And I was like, this is something's going on here. And for some reason, it dawned on me that the sounds that I was hearing weren't external. They were inside of my consciousness. And then the sun coming in through the window, I was like, that sun is not external to me. I says, I'm experiencing that inside of me. And as soon as I said that, there was what felt like two pieces of Velcro pulled apart. There was like a whoosh, like this. And something greater than me, it felt like the universe or God became lucid and looked out through my eyes. And immediately it was the experiences of having the lucid dreams, everything kind of made sense. I was like, oh my God, I am the universe, right? And I'm outside of Garrett's world, right? I have fallen asleep. It was like everything kind of came in. I have fallen asleep, dreamt myself into this character, and I have been living this life totally oblivious to what my true nature is. And I was like, oh my God. And all of this like bliss started coming in. My everything started looking really beautiful. Everything got really vibrant. And then I started to look around and I was like, oh, I've just woke up in this individual, but I'm also what is creating everything I'm experiencing. So the walls, I am the walls, I'm the music, I'm the other people, I'm the machines, I'm the noises. So I'm having the experience of the individual, but I'm also the reality. And then I started to look at the other individuals in the gym and I was like, I just woke up in this one, but I'm also dreaming myself into all of the other individuals, right? But I'm still asleep in them. They're still dreaming. And that was like my spiritual awakening. Um, do you want to stop me there?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is so fascinating and so interesting. So what I'm really hearing, and I'm putting this together, just I'll share in a minute what's also kind of clicking for me. It sounds like the identity, the personality, the ego mind of Gareth, like that Velcro ripping, it's almost like the divine, your true reality of who you are as a direct connection to source, like flooded in,
Yeah.
and you're seeing now, you're observing and you're seeing through the divine mind. And it's almost like what I imagine is your identity, your ego is not in the picture. It is off to it's not there. And you're seeing the other individuals who are part of the dream
Mhm.
thinking they're in reality and they have not woken up yet. Is that kind of
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
okay?
Totally. Totally.
It's so interesting, Gareth. I've done a lot of interviews and I've personally been studying A Course in Miracles a lot, right? And these are the lessons, the daily lessons talk about, this exactly. There's can you see you're in a dream, that this is not
Yeah.
reality. And so this is really flipping cool because so what was that like for you? And how long ago was that? And what shifted? I mean, that's a profound, I can't imagine life is ever the same after that happens.
So that was 2016, and that changed the course of my life
Yeah.
completely, like completely.
Yeah.
So that experience lasted for about 5 minutes, right? It was like, became too much. Tears. I had tears rolling down my face,
Yeah.
at all of this
The bliss.
supreme knowledge. It was like I
Yeah.
understood how the universe was working, and yet there was still my limited self here trying to
Yeah.
piece it all together with my mind as it was all happening. And eventually I just picked up my bag and walked out of the gym and got into work and drove into work,
Yeah.
and had a beautiful drive and a beautiful day in work. Um, but the aperture of what happened in the gym, it definitely closed down, right? So I wasn't able to maintain that, and I
Yeah.
didn't really understand why. And later it started to make sense to me, right? But the next day I woke up, I was completely different. I was like, something is changed. I don't understand. It wasn't like God was peering out through my eyes anymore, but it was like there was unbounded freedom. It was like as if I had kicked off a really uncomfortable shoe, and there was just freedom. That I felt like my identity to my ego was gone. It was like I was like, okay, it's not bothering me anymore. I fear, psychological fear was just gone. I no longer worried about my business, money worries, anything like that. It was just like, oh, everything is fine. I know what I am. At the center of me, there is just unbounded awareness, and it was never born and it never dies. And I am that, and it knows itself. It knew itself through me. So then I was like, okay, I need to understand what's happened. I'm not the same. Something has changed. And I went then seeking, teachers out. I became a spiritual seeker. And the first teacher I came across was Adi Ashanti. I don't know if you know Adi Ashanti, an amazing teacher. And his book, it was called The End of Your World. He was talking about exactly what had happened to me, and what I was going through. And then I started to notice that, okay, life was going on, but I was now taking, time out of my day, going for walks, and I would leave the house, and all of a sudden it was like this aperture would open up again, and it was almost like I was seeing myself in the world. So I was going for walks. I was like, wow, I'm the tree, I'm the light, I'm everything. And it wasn't a permanent state. It was opening up, closing down, opening for maybe an hour every day, closing back down. But I was always staying in what's known as self-realization. That was like a baseline. Um, so for about 2 years, I just sort of organically let that unfold. I didn't really do a whole lot. I didn't tell a lot of people. Um, but what also started to happen was my business started to fall apart.
Mm.
The drive, the entrepreneurial spirit that I had just didn't seem to be there anymore. I was like, nah, I don't really care. What am I doing this for anyway? I never went back to the gym ever after the awakening. I was like, well, why am I going to the gym? I'm going there to look good for other people. It was like something just switched in me. I was like, well, I don't really care anymore what anyone thinks. So that changed everything. I now knew that I was on, there was a new course of my life was opening up. I also had this quite soon after the awakening. I sat down one evening and it was like the intelligence came back in and it told me, it said that your work that you're doing at the moment isn't your true work. And I was like, I have just put 15 years of my life into this. I said, what are you talking about? Of course it's my real work. And it's like, no, your real work is working with the energy in the spine. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I'm, chiropractor, acupuncture. I really didn't know. It also told me that I needed to stop eating meat and dairy products because of the energy in my spine. It wasn't flowing freely. And later on, I discovered that this was the Kundalini energy that was being communicated to me. So I started then having a Kundalini awakening.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, we're like eating this in bites because
yeah,
there's so much. It's so fascinating, and I feel like for those listening, sometimes I'll hear questions, Gareth, and I'm like, we're gonna get to how do others do this, right? Because I think that might be like, how
yeah.
do we all get to this deep self-realization, this awareness? But before we do that, so you are really tuning in. You are now realizing your work that and that's a big deal. 15 years,
Mm.
someone who and many who are listening have started our own businesses. So there's a big amount of surrender and faith there, I'd imagine. Just complete faith and trust.
Yeah, well, I watched it fall apart. I had three
Yeah.
retail stores. They closed one by one.
Wow.
I had to let family members, including my father, go. I had to like, big
Wow.
decisions. And if you know what, I was okay with it. I was like, I know that something else is opening up.
Yeah.
The last day, literally the last day was I went home. The last shop I had, the landlord called me. He put my rent up by 20,000 euros. I went home feeling really defeated. And I also opened up my computer and my website had been hacked. And there was a notice on on my website saying, we've got your website. We're ransoming it. We want 15,000 euros. And I was like, listen, I don't need any more messages. I'm
Yeah.
just done. I was like, keep the website. I just closed the shop and,
Wow.
um,
Hands
yeah,
up.
yeah. I knew. I was like,
Yeah.
look, this is not chance. This is the universe.
Yes. And you had said earlier, find this so fascinating. And for those that are also in those periods where it's like everything is shutting down and closing, you had said earlier, you really had tapped into manifestation and the laws of
Yeah,
the universe. So there's like breadcrumbs here, more than breadcrumbs. You're getting like messages, stop, shut it down, we're done. This is not what you're here for. And
yeah.
so then the Kundalini awakening, the energy in your spine, let's would love to hear. So what was that like? Did you start to harness that? What happened after you got the message and started shutting your stores down?
Yeah, so there was an unfoldment, right? So I was going through a spiritual awakening, and there was stages to it or layers, and it's not like the individual is attaining anything, right? It's not like Gareth, the character, is having a spiritual awakening and is now a better version of himself. It's
Right.
almost like a deconstruction of the individual, right? Everything you believe that you were is being deconstructed, broken down, and what's left is just truth. And
Mhm.
it's a remembering. It's like you're going, oh, I thought I was my mind. I thought I was my personality. I'm none of this. And it's like you're stepping back into these layers of consciousness, discovering itself through the human. And part of it is a Kundalini awakening, right? Because you're in a human body and consciousness is trying to awake up and live through you, but your wiring, your nervous system has to be upgraded. So that was part of what the Kundalini was. It's the life force in all humans that resides at the base of the spine. It can, not for everybody, but when some people are going through a spiritual awakening, the life force can start to rise and starts purifying, clearing the lower chakras, and eventually it gets up into the brain, into the crown, and there's a crown opening. It feels like the lotus flower opens up, and they call this unity consciousness. So Shakti. Shakti is the divine feminine. Shakti and Shiva. Shiva is consciousness. The two of them merge, and there's a sense of unity. So for me, I was meditating one morning. I'd had the full Kundalini awakening, which went all the way up into my brain. And I don't know, a couple of weeks later, I was meditating. And all of a sudden, I saw a coffee mug. And the coffee mug, straight away, I went, oh, that's the container that's housing my consciousness. And then I noticed there was prison bars behind it. And straight away I was like, oh, and I'm imprisoned in the container. And then the coffee mug was tapped against the prison bars 3 times. And on the last tap, the coffee mug shattered and there was an explosion of light in my mind that went out into all directions. And it was almost like I was blinded by the light. Everything went really, really bright and then imploded back in on itself. And everything went really, really quiet. And I knew what it was because I'd been reading about it. And I was like, oh, and everything just sank deeper and deeper and deeper into stillness. And it felt like the edges of me had disappeared and consciousness was now overflowing, spilling out into my reality. And I was now merged kind of panoramically with everything around me. And it was really beautiful, very blissful. And then I started meditating with people. People would go, Gareth, can we meditate online? I started to meet people, and it kind of very organically started to open up where I became contagious. So I would sit and meditate with a friend or 2 friends, and they would say, I'm feeling something. There's something different when I meditate with you. And it was before COVID. I mean, it's probably gone back about 6 years now. People started turning up. We started meditating on Zoom and it was like maybe 3 people and it just grew and grew and grew and grew. And now, I mean, there's sometimes I open up my Zoom, there's like 150 people, all online meditating with me and on YouTube. So what started to happen was, right, my dad was going through a bit of a hard time at the time. And I had been going through this awakening and I was saying, look, maybe you need to go through a spiritual awakening. And I was really wanted to give him a taste of what I was experiencing. I was like, you don't have to be depressed. You don't have to be anxious, but I couldn't teach him. I couldn't tell him. And I was going, this just doesn't work, me speaking. And what happened was I was like, I really want to give him that direct experience. And I remember meditating and asking the God or the consciousness, can I do this? And a process, something happened. It was like the breath left me. It was like all of a sudden breath just stopped. It felt like my heart stopped and my head just slumped over like that. It was like the life left my body, yet I was still there. And I went, what has happened? And then all of a sudden, I was like, did I just have a heart attack? Did I just die? And I was like, maybe I should try and stand up and move my body. And I said, no, let's just see what happens. And all of a sudden, what felt like a big hand came in and pushed really heavy down on my heart. And I was like, what is happening? And then all of a sudden, the hand went away and it went, now you're able to transmit your state to other people. And the hand left and then the breath came back and my heart felt like it started beating again. I was like, oh. And that was how it started. So then I told someone about that and I meditated with them. And I discovered that it was transmissive. It was almost contagious. Like people would come meditate, and they could experience something. Their state was elevated by meditating with me.
Wow. Okay. So what do you think is actually happening with this activation? So I mean, and I'm hearing it. You've already gone through the experience of what it might feel like to die, which really isn't dying. You still have your consciousness. So I'd imagine the fear, it feels like the fear is not there. This hand comes in, you get this message. Can you feel a shift in your energy? Can you feel the difference when you're with others? I'm curious as a highly sensitive, high energy person, and I know others that are tuning in, like attracts like, we have a lot
Yeah.
of highly sensitive empaths here, very in tune. Does it feel different? Say more about that.
Yes. So I'll go back to the Kundalini. So the Kundalini is our condensed life force that resides at the base of the spine, right? When it awakens, it feels like you're plugged into a socket. Like you can have an arousal of it and you can feel kind of nice sensations. But when you have a rising of Kundalini, it's like somebody has plugged you into the mains, right? And the Kundalini, not always, but when it's moving, it feels like it's like electrical snake moving up and down inside your spine. So when that snake eventually gets to the crown, right, the condensed Shakti or the Kundalini becomes a field of Shakti. So it changes, and it's like as if there's a field of warm, fuzzy energy around me. And I can send it to people. I can sit with people. People feel it off me. When I do retreats, that's how I work, right? They sit, they meditate. The room becomes this field. The energy becomes organized. It actually has an intelligence all of its own. It starts going in, working on people, removing blockages, purification, and activating the Kundalini life force in other people. Just if it's not intrusive, if it's part of that person's process, they will get what they need. It's not like I'm going, activating it and being really, just sending people off into the world. It's like if they need it, if it's part of their journey, it'll happen for them and they can draw whatever they need.
Do you believe anyone can have a Kundalini awakening? Is it tend to be more where you are in your, this life and your karma and intention, or what's your thought about that?
So I would say we've all got a Kundalini, right? But I would say 99.999% of people on the planet do not have an active or awakened Kundalini, right?
Right.
It seems to be a certain level of spiritual maturity is needed for Kundalini rising, because it can be like really intense for some people, especially if there's a lot of trauma in their system.
Yeah.
It's almost like everything becomes heightened. Like, if you've got trauma in your system, it'll feel like it's doubling in your
Yeah.
system. So I think, can anyone have one? Probably. If they
Yeah.
really, really wanted it, are they ready for it? Probably
Right.
not.
Right. You mentioned earlier, and I'm curious with what you wrote about and what you've experienced, the truth that you really got to see and feel about who we are, about
Yeah.
this reality versus the reality of pure spirit, whatever you call that. What do you know to be true, Gareth?
So what I know to be true is that I exist as consciousness, right? I exist always. Um, and my body is temporary, my personality is temporary. Every night I fall asleep, I disappear, right? Garrett disappears. My dreams, everything that I do during the day, it all crumbles. But I kind of maintain awareness even when I'm sleeping, right? I'm consciousness. So that is what we all are. We are the divine dreaming itself into these physical forms to remember itself. It's like hide and seek. It dreamt itself, it forgot itself, entered into this reality, this game of form, um, to have interactions, to become a better person, to find love, to interact, and to uncover what we have been always and will always be.
Yeah. What someone who's listening, who's on the journey, my sense is what I've noticed our show tends to really attract people that are, beautiful souls that are either awakened or awakening,
Yeah,
starting to notice, wait a minute, there's more here. Wait a
yeah,
minute. The idea of being your Youest You really is connected to what you're saying. God is, the divine is, you are, this is your higher self. That is who you really are. What can any of us listening, tuning in, where do we start? Where to start with, you've experienced something early on, you've been on a journey. Where would you instruct or suggest people begin and to really start to feel and sense and remember what
okay,
you're,
okay. So I guess the biggest obstacle to discovering what we really are is our minds, right? Our busy
Yes.
minds telling us the story, commentating, making judgments, comparisons, labeling everything, right? It's just constantly going. And that's like this layer that's blocking the true self from shining through, or awakening to its full potential through our physical forms. So I guess what people could start doing is just to start off meditation. It just seems to be the simplest and quickest way for people to get in contact with their true nature, right? Slow the mind down, really come into the body, right? It's I talked about having the out of body experiences, getting out of the body, but really what I discovered is it's actually about coming into the body, really being embodied, feeling, being here, like being with a person, looking at them, not having your mind going 1,000 miles, all these thoughts when the other person is talking, slowing it down, engaging, looking in their eyes, listening, being in the body. Also, they can look at the world as also the divine, right? Reality is not just an objective, something out there. It's the divine. And it can start to send you messages, like books can just fall off the shelf. Your YouTube playlist, YouTube algorithm all of a sudden brings up your podcast, stuff like that. It's like just listening, right? The universe is trying to awaken you. It's almost like it's got a feather and it's going wake up from the dream, right? It's doing everything it can. So it's just
I love
listening. Yeah, come into the body, listen.
that. Yes. Oh, I just had I got chills. This is so interesting. I just have to share, this is how I get signs. I was at the gym and I get a lot of lessons there as well.
Yeah,
And I was leaving today and as I'm pulling in, I'm like, oh, that's funny. That car just really got my attention. The license plate said, listen.
yeah,
And I thought, huh. I mean, I see things like this all the time, but I thought this is connected to speaking with you, and I don't know yet why. And it was like lit up. It lit up. I saw it. I'm like, okay, pay attention to this. And so, what I'm hearing you say, and I think what I've noticed is this idea of, we're being woken up with the feather. I think of like, if you were having a nightmare and your mom was waking you up from it, she wouldn't like shake you and, get you to jump out. It would be very lovingly. And so I pictured that with the feather. It's like, it's going to be loving and we've got to pay attention and listen. And so it's funny. I saw that today and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm getting a wink. Like, oh, that
yeah,
is super connected to this and the message to listen, to
yeah.
really to quiet down and listen.
Yeah, and what I'll also say is, right, the work that I do, I tend not to like I'm able to speak about it, right? I'm able to do podcasts and I wrote a book and for people it's useful, but there is something else. There is a direct experience, and
Yeah.
that's what I do. That's all the basis of my work is giving people a direct experience of it. So what I do is I have a YouTube channel. I do meditations, right? Silent meditation. So you just go along to my YouTube channel. You'll see me with my eyes closed doing absolutely nothing. And you might go, what's this guy doing? Right. But if you close your eyes and meditate,
Yeah.
you can tap into it. So what I discovered is the transmissions exist always, right? So they're
Mhm.
always there. And the YouTube videos are an interface. So you go along, you're able
Yes.
to use the YouTube video. It's like a www.transmission. You hit
Yep.
play and the energy comes through the video. So you can, and I mean, if we have time, I'd even be willing to do
Yes.
a 10-minute demonstration for you and the viewers. And it will stay. So people watching the recording, even a year, 2 years, 3 years, they can tap into the energy.
Well, we are on the same literal wavelength. I was just thinking
Great.
we need to do an experience. It's interesting, Gareth, from the the seeking I've been doing. This is a really important thing to remember, especially for those of us that can get very into like, am I doing it right? Am I saying it right? It's not words, which are symbols. It's not it's the experience. It's the experience that we're talking about that is paramount over
Yeah.
the having the right words, saying the right thing. That's not what's going to make the difference.
You cannot get this wrong. As long as you're
Yeah.
making somewhat of an effort,
Beautiful.
you're going in the right direction. You can't get it wrong. Even if it feels like it's wrong, actually there's a lesson in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, oh, that's beautiful. Well, and it reminds me, you were saying earlier, you used the terminology, which I loved, of, your course curriculum, this idea that each of us has a curriculum here, that we are in this, and would you say dreamt up life
Hmm.
that we think is I'm individual Julie, you're individual Gareth, which in reality, I mean, my sense is we are all of the same one,
Yeah.
seeing fractal reflections of,
Yeah.
so really you and I and everyone, we are all from the same
Yes.
all-knowing, loving presence. We forget that.
Yes. And the beauty is that we have shadow, right? And the only way we can see our shadow is by
Ah,
somebody else holding up a mirror. So we need something different. We need other people. We need relationships. We need the boss for us to be able to see what's going on with us, right? It's like other people trigger us. It's never about the other person. It's about,
right.
oh, okay, what in me is unresolved? Why am I feeling the way I am because
Yeah.
of what that person has said? It's hitting something in me. And it just
Yeah.
shows us. It's a mirror. It's all a mirror.
Yeah.
It's all a game. And it becomes fun.
Yes. Before we do the experience,
Yeah,
I had someone who we get a lot of comments here on YouTube and I get a lot of emails and questions. And someone just wrote in, it was actually from another episode, but they were asking about, and I think this is really connected, evil, right? And we don't need to get too specific, but
sure.
evil can show up in a lot of different ways. And my intuition is saying it's connected to shadow. How do you, from we'll just take it from high level. What is your experience being in the self realization, having the God force see through you? What do we do with quote unquote evil and really challenging people, situations, atrocities, things like that? What are we here to learn from that?
So I mean, it's a very, very good question. Very, one that I often get asked, and I find it quite challenging, right? Because part of what happens when you go through awakening is that you actually really only experience this very present moment, right? So a lot of the times when you might read the newspapers, which I don't, right? And I don't watch the news, so I
Yeah,
don't really put focus on what's happening anywhere. I'm not saying that suffering isn't going on, and I'm not saying that
yeah,
there's atrocities aren't going on in the world, because they are, right? But how I live my life is, right? What can I change? I can only change what's in front of me.
yeah,
So if you approach me and you come to me and you have a problem, in that moment I will be fully with you, right? I will sit there, I'll be compassionate. So my attention doesn't go out to something that it can't control, right? It
mm,
just doesn't. I kind of deal with what's in front of me. I'm back from a 7-day retreat in Lisbon, Portugal. And I mean, there's people there, there's stuff coming up for them,
yeah,
traumatic stuff. And I'm with people, I'm really there dealing
yeah,
with them. And that's the most I can do. I'm
yeah,
not saying that the stuff out there isn't going on,
yeah.
but I can only do what's in front of me.
Yes. Well, and what I'm hearing, and it's interesting, I was trained in the healing modality of coaching, and I teach coaches, and we talk a lot about sacred presence, sacred space. And
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is, and I believe this to the core, when we call in the sacred presence, right, divine presence, that is a space that it's almost like it's able to hold everything and perhaps have a different frequency. Yeah,
Yeah, so like we're not meant to go on a crusade to change the world, right? We
right.
our business is to change ourselves,
That's
right?
right.
We need to grow up, and when we do that,
And our
we
mind.
start transmitting out to others, and others start to take notice.
Yep.
And you may not even know it or realize it, but you're having an effect. I mean, there's been studies done. The TM movement have done studies where they've had
Yeah.
TMers living in certain neighborhoods, and all of a sudden the crime rate drops by 50% just by them people living in the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the work of the Heart Math Institute. They look at heart intelligence. It's very connected to what you're saying. I love this, and I love this so much, Gareth, because we have so many people tuning in from all over the world, probably similar to, when you get on YouTube and in this podcast, YouTube, wherever. And I love this because it's something we can all do, is to mind our minds, to reconnect, what we're going to do in a moment, to really re-plug
Yeah.
yourself in, whether you have Kundalini experience or not. We all have this
Yeah.
ability. So yeah, I love that.
And in our meditations, we can send love out to we can have compassion. We can do that, right? We can't go to
Yes.
every single country and
Yeah.
find people. It's impossible. But what we can do is we can change ourselves. We
Yeah.
can we can have an effect on the people around us. And if we want to, in our meditations, we can send healing to different parts of the world, right? We can do all that.
Love that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, so let's do it. Let's do the experience. Let's have this experience.
Okay.
What a
Would
gift.
would
Thank
you
you,
like to do
Gareth.
10 minutes? Is that enough? Or
Yes, let's do
okay,
10.
10 minutes. Let's do 10 minutes. Okay, great.
All right, friends.
Okay. So
We're doing this.
so we want people just to come into the body, close their eyes, don't analyze with the mind, just kind of notice what's happening in the body, right? Am I noticing gentle energy? Is my body feeling more relaxed? Just kind of stay with the body. Don't have an interpretation. Don't label what's going on. Just have an open mind. Okay, we'll start now. Okay. Very nice.
Wow. I need a minute because that went very fast, actually. I felt like, wow. I just want to say I meditate daily. I'm curious, others listening, let us know what you felt. I felt like almost like this might sound strange, almost like we were all holding hands and holding up this very loving, almost maternal, loving energy. I felt very heart energy, like
It
just
is. It is.
radiating. Yeah,
Yeah. It is like it's a warm, fuzzy, loving, feminine energy.
yeah,
And it feels like being wrapped in cotton wool, and it's very caring, very loving, nurturing. And it is like we are all connected, right? Your consciousness is the same as my consciousness. And what's happening is it's like taking a log that's smoldering and a log that's burning brightly, right? You take the two of them together, the one that's smoldering, it just catches on so much quicker. And it this path is, it's like the path of grace, right? It's like
mm,
you can sit for 10 years meditating by yourself, right? You'll make progress. But if you can find someone, right, or grace just descends on you, it just
yeah,
speeds up the whole process so much faster.
amazing. Gareth, and I'm going to say to people, you can come back to this over and over again. You have your channel, you meditate, you have retreats, and we'll have
Thank you.
your website, your information. Absolutely. One of my very dear friends, Valerie, who's like a sister from another mister, has been attending and talking about the energy, the beautiful, that divine feminine, that loving energy. Her sister Michelle, who also I adore, just I think what's so beautiful, Gareth, is this wasn't, for those who, let me say it this way, you didn't like come out with a business plan to do this. Like this found itself to you, and you followed the light. This to me is like got the divine thumbprint all over it, what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm an introvert really, and
Ah,
I never wanted to be a teacher, never imagined it. And actually
yeah.
the whole thing started originally. There was another guy that I knew who used to make guided meditations, and I would help him. I would say, "Oh, I get people," and he would post it, and everybody, and it kind of a little small group started to build up. And then he said, "Oh, I don't really want to do it anymore," and I was kind of left with a few people. And that's how it all started. They would say, "Okay, well, let's continue meditating," and we would just meditate in silence, and it just
Yeah.
developed. Yeah,
Yes. It just reminds me we often, we're qualified by being called. It doesn't mean that you knew this was going to happen. And I see this, I've experienced this myself. I've seen this, and I'm really getting this with you. What's so beautiful is, our brain, we can think the identity can be on a
yeah,
path, right? You had your three stores, your dad worked for you.
yeah,
And I'm saying this because, sometimes it looks like someone takes over your website and they hack it, or your store, your stores aren't doing well, or they close, or you have to fire a family member. Like things can happen that seem very upsetting. Yet when we are in that place of it's all part of our growth and expansion, following those, not that we can't feel the feelings, but what I'm hearing is you really followed the divine breadcrumbs and allowed yourself to organically now be in this space where you're able to really help and heal people. It's very
Y-
beautiful.
yeah. It's just surrendering to what life
Yeah.
brings up, right? It's like
Yeah.
most of the time we our ego get involved, right? And it goes, I don't want this experience, but I want that experience, right? It wants the good things, wants to pull them in, it wants to push away the bad experiences,
Yeah.
and it wants its version of reality. But when we just allow reality to turn up as it is, and we just accept it, and we surrender to what happens in the moment, life starts to flow, right? When we're not in the way. And like for me, I felt that consciousness sort of found me useful, right? I ran a business. I was organized. I could run retreats. I could do, logistics. I could set things up, this kind of stuff. So I was useful, and it used me.
Mm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I wonder, maybe that is, the prayer, right? Well, it actually is. I know I personally say this, daily, use me as an instrument, use
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And you did that. And so for all of our, brothers,
And
sisters
you're doing the
everywhere listening.
same.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. This was not the path I was on. I can tell you right now. This was not
Yeah.
what I thought I would be. No, not, I love it. It just absolutely. Sometimes I'm like, and it has a different feeling. You said it, there's a getting yourself out of the way. You said that. And I feel that I mean, getting to share you and people that are
Mm.
helping to illuminate minds and remembrance and, really getting the reality, getting who we are. To
Yeah.
me, there's nothing more important than waking up from this dream, like your book said. And yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the divine needs human forms, right? It's formless, so it needs us to be the
yeah.
ones to do its work, right? It comes down, it works through us. Amazing. I've really enjoyed my time today, Julie.
Oh my gosh, Gareth,
It's
thank
been
you.
great.
Oh, I love your
Your
energy. Thank you.
your
This was,
questions have been great. The energy has been
oh,
amazing. Honestly, I've done quite a few podcasts. I mean, I've loved this one. This has been amazing.
thank you. Thank you. It's such a gift. Are there any, I call them heart flares, is there anything that I didn't ask you or just a word or an intention or anything you're like, I want to share this? I always like to ask
I
this.
don't think so. I think it's been really perfect. I think we covered quite a lot. The meditation as well was
Yes.
really nice to put in at the end. And also I think that's a really good way for people to have an experience, and maybe they can like drop comments down below, and it can, they can say what they felt.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. I love that you said that. I try to respond to everyone, and you get
perfect.
to see it. Well, we do want to know, what did you feel? I'm very curious because that
Yeah,
was, I felt like a little naturally high after with you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and well, I thank you. Thank you. I will say this from, the term namaste, like the light, the love in me really does see and feel the light and the love in you. And I'm going to extend that to everyone who's tuning in now forevermore. But thank you for stepping into your highest purpose. It's so clear, and being such an important light and healer here. I've
thank
loved
you.
connecting with you.
You've been an
Yeah.
amazing host, Julie. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm just going to say thank you to all of you for being here. We love you. And please let us know, what did you feel? What did you sense? What's happening? What's opening up? How are you seeing and feeling your light, experiencing that? Remember, it takes courage to be your Youest You. Thank you. Thank you for being on this journey together, because together we can wake up and
Yeah,
remember who we really are. Mwah.
thank you so much.
Hey, beautiful soul. I'm Julie. I'm so grateful that you're here. And I just want to say, if you've been feeling that nudge, like something deep inside of you is whispering, it is time. And yes, this is your sign. I created Intuition School just for you. It is a self-paced, transformative course and deeply spiritual journey designed to help you trust your inner wisdom, connect with your higher self, and unlock the magic that is already and always within you. Imagine no longer second guessing yourself. Imagine following your soul's purpose and having total clarity. Imagine attracting what your heart really, truly desires and effortlessly. I know firsthand that when you trust your intuition, everything changes. That's why I'm inviting you to join me inside this powerful mystery school for the soul. You'll learn the intuition framework, tools, practices, meditations, and healing offerings to help you access your higher guidance. And because I'm so excited for you to begin this journey, I've got a very special gift for you. Just use the code podcast97 to get $97 off of your enrollment. If this is feeling like a soul yes, let's do this together. Step into your divine intuitive power now. You can enroll today at juliereisler.com/intuition school. Use the code podcast97 for $97 off. I will make sure that the links are below. And let me remind you, what you're seeking is always seeking you. Your higher self is waiting. So much love.